consider.
Yeah. And if you don't want to celebrate Halloween, if you feel a certain way about it, don't do it.
Totally.
But I really feel you shouldn't judge other Christians for celebrating it.
Yeah.
You know?
Again, the judgment word.
No, just so
it's
dumb.
it's always it's a constant
Christmas.
thing. Guys,
It's awful.
like, can we stop like just looking at each other and pointing at each other and just placing that shame on each other?
Yeah.
Like that's not who we should be.
Yeah.
We're each called to do certain things. We're called, as we said many times, to love one another and to be disciples. And those are our two main things. And we need to be encouraging each other to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
And placing judgment is the opposite of what God wants for us. And everybody's going to live a different life, and everyone is going to have a different relationship with God and different goals.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to be in tune with those things.
My previous church that I went to hosted a harvest party, and I think that's a great alternative if you don't want to celebrate Halloween in any way. They would do different activities, and I think that's a great idea. So I think a lot of churches are doing that. So if that's something that is a good alternative for you, then
do a lot of trunk or treats too.
Well, trunk or treats, yeah, our
Tons of
church
trunk or
used to
treats.
do that, but I think we stopped because we were trying to simplify our ministries. So
Yeah. I just want to say that our weekly wrap up. So we
Let's
have
do it.
a show today, which we'll talk about next time. And I had my very first session of Worship Circle this week.
Oh, cool. I want to hear about it.
It was awesome. Todd Fields was the one who kind of gave us a little bit, I want to call it a lesson, I guess, or whatever. And he gave us like 3 points. Be still, be prepared, be something else that I can't think. Be known. Okay. And it's always cool to sit there with them and to listen to the wisdom that they share. And then we had our small groups with Kim, and I always love to hear her story, and we get to share our story. And in those small groups, when you first share your story, it's scary. Like last year, I was petrified to share my story, and I knew God wanted me to get down and dirty and tell them everything. And I was petrified to tell a group of strangers and Kim Walker-Smith, like, my yucky story. But God's so glorified in it. Mm-hmm. And when I shared it, there was just an incredible freedom that I had. So I went into it very different this time. I knew that we were going to share, so I went into it, and I also encouraged them. I said, I have cried at every single session. Every single time I have a session or a small group, I have cried, because there's so much power in those groups, and just to be with those leaders and to listen to what they're teaching. And it's just so beautiful to have them pray over you, to be able to pray for each other with people around the world that you may never meet. Mm-hmm. It's so cool to do that. So that's what we did. We just shared our stories, and it was really powerful. And we had talked about how when you're involved in things like this, or when you're doing things for God in a very meaningful way, that you can be under spiritual attack and not to be surprised. And in fact, this week, major spiritual attack for me, from all angles, everywhere, things that you're shocked. You're like, how is this happening? So just an encouragement that when you feel like that, God is doing something, and it's going to be great. And that's why you're going through all these challenges. So, but Worship Circle was awesome, and I can't wait to see what I'm going to learn next. Mm-hmm. Charlie, without a last name, Charlie. He's going to be speaking to us next, but I'm happy to share anything I learned. This one was really just a brief overview. It was kind of like welcome to class type of a thing, where you do your orientation and get to know everyone. But it's been great. So thanks for those who are supporting me in that.
It's interesting to see it, that you said, after you gave your testimony, you felt free. Usually when I give my testimony after that, I feel completely like judged and vulnerable. I feel completely the opposite. I feel like nobody really cares, or people are judging my story, or I just feel like I shouldn't have shared. Yeah, I feel completely.
I think that's the anxiety factor. I definitely had a moment where I was like, "Ooh, maybe I shared too much," but I felt like it was what God wanted me to do. So I think that's why I had a freedom in it. Like, I just felt like, okay, I said it. I laid it out there. Yeah. I shared the yucky stuff. I shared the positive stuff. And in all, God was glorified. And that's
You're just
really
being faithful to his still small voice.
And I believe truly that that's why I felt a freedom in it.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for the chat today, Jules.
Yeah. Wait. One last thing, we got to share our song of the week.
Oh, gosh. Do you have one off the top of your head?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
I have been listening to Britney Spears. Oops, I did it again because I'm trying to do like a remake of it. So I've been listening to that funny. A lot. I know that sounds crazy. But I also have been listening to Hillsong's Awake My Soul. They just released an album. I think it is called Awake. And when Brooke sings at the end, she like sings this shout. She's like, hey! Oh, I'm like, woo, in the car, like full volume. I'm like, yes, Brooke. Yes.
Brooke,
and I
like later would.
Yeah.
Fraser.
Yes.
Later,
yes. Yeah. She's a singer for Hillsong, and man, that song is good. And if you need a pump up song, put on that song and blast it out and jam to it. What about you? Anything?
Feels Like Home. I was listening to that a lot because for some reason when we were making our set list, that song came to mind, but we're not doing it tonight, unfortunately. But that just brought back a lot of good memories. I really like that song. I forget who it's by. Chantel something.
Yeah.
It's from the
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days soundtrack.
It's like 10 something.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love that. Thanks.
Well, thanks for the chat.
Yeah, it was a good chat.
It was.
All right. Happy Halloween, peeps.
Yeah. Enjoy.
Or happy harvest.
You're listening to quality Christ-centered content
delivered with excellence.
This is
WIAMradio.com podcasting.